of you, no doubt of Jim's generation, will remember the 1967 musical Hair, whose title song lyrics went sort of as follows. Give me a head of hair, long, beautiful hair, shining, gleaming, streaming, flaxen, waxen. Let it fly in the breeze and get caught in the trees. Give a home for the fleas in my hair. My hair like Jesus wore it. Hallelujah, I adore it. Despite follicle envy on my part, it's a pleasure to say, here's Jim.
Thank you, Andrew. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming very much. It's a real pleasure to be back here before the Humanities Forum and make this little presentation this afternoon. Before we get too far into this, I'd like to acknowledge two people who are here today, and they're going to be very important in the discussion as it goes forward. The first is my wife, Jackie. Put up with so much of this over the last years. The other person I'd like to introduce is Diane Zeitlin over here, who is a social worker and a friend and a massage therapist extraordinaire, and she too figures in this story in one very particular that we will get to. Today I want to speak to you about hair, about body hair, and about the hair on our heads in particular. Turns out to be a fascinating topic, actually, and it's a locus, as it says in the blurb, of intense social and psychological pressures. Now, we all already know this, so I'm not going to be telling you anything you don't already know. We know this in terms, just in principle, and we know this in terms of our own personal grooming. We all go through this. Beyond just pointing our attention to this interesting subject, today I want to present and talk about the results of a sociological and psychological study, an experiment that I've been conducting related to hair over the last 22 months. And that experiment has been to let my hair grow and see what happens. As an aside, by the way, and a nod to reflexivity, I should say that there's been quite considerable discussion about how this presentation ought to take place. A number of people said, Jackie had the idea originally that she should cut my hair while I'm giving this talk. We thought that was a pretty good idea, just impractical. Somebody suggested I should have it cut beforehand. Somebody suggested I should hand out hair samples as souvenirs, and so on and so forth. Asiba Thanam, Associate Provost here at Stevens, suggested that I show up in saffron robes and give a general blessing. I rather like that suggestion. So, Om Shanti Om to all of you. That's today's subject. I need and want to take a minute or two just to provide a little background to this experiment. It helps explain why I did it and the circumstances. And Andrew is absolutely right. For this, I want to bring you to one particular moment in the spring of 1968. Now, 1968 was a really great year, and some of you may have heard of it. I don't remember all of that much, but that's the way it's supposed to be. The Vietnam War was going, great guns, 500 body bags back a week. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll had broken out all over. It was really fantastic. 1968 was, I'm talking about the spring of 68. 1968 was also an election year. And Lyndon Johnson, the war president, was running for a second term to which he was constitutionally entitled. Only one person was opposing Lyndon Johnson, and that was Eugene McCarthy, the mild-mannered senator from Wisconsin. Minnesota, damn it. I got it wrong every time I tried this talk. And McCarthy was the anti-war movement, and it was the voice of the anti-war movement. And the primary in New Hampshire, Johnson won the primary in New Hampshire, but McCarthy put in a really good showing. And the next step was Wisconsin, and Eugene McCarthy in Wisconsin Jackie and I were seniors in college at the time, and the only thing to do was to go off to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and campaign for Eugene McCarthy. It would be something like going off and campaigning for Bernie Sanders today. You can appreciate the interest and the enthusiasm of young people with that sort of thing to do. So we get to Milwaukee, we get to campaign headquarters, and the word on the street was, get clean for Gene, as we needed to go out and canvass, but we didn't want to épater la bourgeoisie, so the idea was to get cleaned up. I was pretty funky looking at the time, so I went to a barber shop to get my hair cut so that I could go door to door and campaign for Eugene McCarthy. This is what happened. This is from Memoirs of a Baby Boomer. Little did I realize that I had fallen into the hands of a vicious Republican barber, who would have been right-wing and nasty in any event, but who made the most of the hippie McCarthy supporter, who sat down in his chair. After a few disfiguring and well-remarked upon cuts to the mane, my haircut was declared done. Back at campaign headquarters, Jackie found a pair of scissors and touched me up. And she has faithfully cut my hair ever since. I have not been back in a barber shop since that day in 1968. That's 47 years ago. So, Jackie said, you need a haircut? I get a haircut. This is our family setup. We put down some newspaper, had a little thing. This sheet is very sentimental for us. This was from our lit de mariage that we shared long ago. Jackie would cut my hair. I'd go take a shower. I never thought about it for 46, 47 years. And this is sort of before. This is more or less what I looked like. This is what Jackie thought I should be looking like, and this is what she made me look like. And I never thought of it. But then, Jackie has a really bad accident. And in fact, sort of coincident with this talk, we were commemorating Jackie's recovery. That's 22 months ago. It was clear that for at least 10 months, she was going to be out of action and not able to cut my hair at all. I have a problem at this point. A disaster had struck. What am I going to do? I was reluctant to go to a barber because I hadn't been inside a barber shop since 1968, and I just didn't know what that was. So, as a sociological and psychological experiment, I decided to let my hair grow and see what happens. In this, I was influenced by my Stevens colleague, Professor Yu Tao, in her Introduction to Sociology course, where she has her students violate a social norm of one sort or another. So this physical space, or the way you dress, or something like this notion of social norms, I thought we could play around with here. And then one evening in February of 2014, I had a conversation with my old pal, Phil Riley, who is a scientist and venture capitalist. And I asked Phil, in your circumstances, could you let your hair grow? Now, it's psychological and sociological, but combined for both, Phil said, absolutely not. He's a clean-cut looking guy, clean-cut job, he's not going to let his hair grow. But professors can do things like this. Professors are free in ways that other people are not. And so I said, well, the hell with it. Let's just see what happens. Oh, I must say, too, so this is the experiment. And I must say, too, that I wanted to give, in retrospect at least, I wanted to give Jennifer McClellan a run for her money, too. Well, no, first, I guess we'll leave Jennifer's picture up there. Let me say something about this qua experiment. I know this is Stevens. You have some innate ideas about scientific method and what an experiment should be and so on and so forth. We could have another discussion at some point about what an experiment is. It's a very interesting, complex topic. This one had no hypotheses, to be sure. I wasn't testing a damn thing. It was surely inductive, Baconian. Let's just collect facts and see what happens. Now, you might argue that I screwed up the experiment by telling everybody what was going on. I'd say, hey, you know, I'm letting my hair grow, blah, blah, blah. I came up in conversation, and so on and so forth. Oh, my friend Sandy, though, did have one idea that I'm sorry I didn't pursue, and that was I should have been taking pictures all along. I don't have, like, a movie to show you, which I think would be, like, really cool. Jackie was opposed to the idea from the beginning, and against it all along, and only reluctantly agreed to it. I like the way you look, she said. And on March 9th, she said again, for example, I'm not going to live with this forever. So I want to apologize publicly to Jackie for the discomfort that I've just caused her over the last 22 months in the pursuit of knowledge. Okay. In the end, my experiment may have turned out to be simply a stunt, an exercise in narcissism, as Andrew sort of was suggesting in his introduction. I apologize for that if that's the case. In any event, things happen. I wrote them down, and I'm going to talk with you and tell you a little bit about them. Before I do that, however, and launch into that, I need to say a little something about the literature here. My credentials and professional expertise lie wholly elsewhere. And so I guess technically this is no more than just an amateur talk of one sort or another. But you should know that there exists a wide-ranging literature out there concerning hair. Hair figures in a range of disciplines: ethnography and social anthropology, physical anthropology, discussions of human evolution, human hairlessness, comparative hairlessness, for example, very interesting topic, forensic anthropology, for hair at crime scenes, that kind of thing. Social psychology, study of group practices, styles, fashion, the sociology of the hair salon. There exists, at least I saw a little bit online, of a field known as hair research. The ur-text for this goes back to Irving Goffman's 1959 classic, The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life. And I'm indebted to Hugh Lester, a mature graduate student in the School of Assistants here, for pointing this book out to me and to alerting me that, hey, there is a lot of people, very serious people, who thought a lot about this sort of stuff, and you need to know about it. And I've taken a little bit of a look. Here's a more recent, popular book I found fascinating too, edited by Ruth Benedict, 27 Women Untangling Obsession. Just to tip you off a little bit, one of the points I'm really going to be trying to make here is that the hair thing is a woman thing. I know there's nuance that needs to be added here, but the fact that these are women writing about hair, I find interesting. People sent me stuff, and in my file I found an article by David Penn. It's 1993, but still very interesting, important, called Marked Women, Unmarked Men, who connects these issues with linguistic theory as well. So that's another sort of theoretical dimension here. And Tannen, in addition to much else, notes the gender differences in regard to hair and to dress. A lot's been written about black hair, and about black women's hair in particular. Think Michelle Obama. Do blondes have more fun? Studies of that sort. Women shaving their legs and their underarms. There are issues there. A whole set of issues about pubic hair as well, and places like Pretty Kitty that just opened up on Washington Street. There doesn't seem to be that much of a literature about men. I found some about Sikhs, and if you want to know where I think the research ought to go, it ought to go into manscaping. I don't think there's been enough literature on manscaping. If I take up something else, maybe I'll do that. Okay. But let's be clear. It's not just about women. I want to make the argument that it's mostly about women, and it's oppressive to women. But it's not just about women. I don't see her in the audience, but Annette from Makeover's Beauty Store said she might come here. And she's the one who's telling me that she's selling a lot of products to men. So everybody is concerned about their look somehow or another, the way they present themselves. But I think the hair thing, again, affects women more. We shouldn't leave out considerations of the entire range of gay, lesbian, transgender-like individuals, where hair plays significant social roles and serves as signifiers. That's really the key of your status, of your identity, of your group belonging, and so on and so forth. We all have to take care of our hair in one way or another as a feature of personal grooming. But most men I've questioned over the last 2 years have said that every once in a while they go into a barbershop and get their hair cut. Yes, the barbershop is a site of important male sociability, especially but not only in the black community, but not hair per se, it seems to me, as it is with women. So leaving these groups aside, let's say the hair thing is a woman thing. As I myself said early in this experiment, with surprise, Women walk around with works of art on their head. This is my first finding, really, and it's astounding to me, and I need to tell you why it's astounding to me. It's astounding to me because I knew none of this before Jackie fell and had her accident, and I was faced with this issue. I come from a very male and masculine family. There are 4 boys in my family, a very strong father, a comparatively weak but not unfeminine mother. The world of girls and women was like, could have been on the moon as far as I was concerned growing up. I'm learning stuff now in my 60s, my late 60s, that middle school girls already know intimately and expertly. Just think about the middle school girls' room and what goes on there. My experiment has taught me a lot of things that most people know already, and I dare say most people in this room also know already. One of the things that happened, for the people who know me or knew me as this process was going on, I got compared to other people. They say, oh, you look like. I want to take a minute and just go through a bunch of people that I was said to look like. Here's the first one. Some of you may remember or know Roger Pinkham, a Stevens math professor. When Jackie caught on that I was actually doing this, the first thing she said was, "You're going to look just like Roger Pinkham." Now, what you don't see here, this is the best I could find of Roger, if you were to turn him sideways, you'd see a big scraggly ponytail coming out the back of his head. All right, so, well then I tell Debbie Pagan, the administrative assistant in the Humanities, or the College of Arts and Letters, she says, first thing she said, "Oh, you're going to look just like Roger Pinkham." And then, in the spring, I'm walking down 8th Street going home. There's a car, we're down the street, a guy rolls down the window, honk, 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 "Dr. Pinkham! Dr. Pinkham!" Well, in any event. This is a good one, I like this one. Einstein. "Oh, you look like Einstein." "Oh, great." That's pretty good. The fact that President Varden, the president of Stevens, thought that I looked like Einstein, I thought was really good. I think you want your president to think that he's got Einstein on his hands, but looks can be deceiving. Some younger admirers thought that Gandalf was the guy. I certainly bought into that. A little less so, Professor Dumbledore from Hogwarts School and a Harry Potter character. Steven Pinker, fancy Harvard professor. I actually wanted to make this picture smaller, but I decided in the end to make it bigger because, he's really gorgeous. And one afternoon, up in the Cal offices there, I'm up there, and Professor Susan Shep is walking behind me, and she walks behind me, she lets, in a rather sotto voce, she says to me, "You're giving Steven Pinker a run for his money." Thank you, Susan. These are my contemporaneous notes. I'm walking down Garden Street. Jim! I hear from across the street. Jim, is that you? What's going on?" It's Richie from Meallic Mechanical, does air conditioning heating work here in Hoboken. Comes over the street. Jim, you look great. You know who you look like? Only you lost 200 pounds? Grizzly Adams. A skinny Grizzly Adams. Like Grizzly Adams. This one. William Catt, grade B actor. Now, unfortunately, I think I look like William Catt on your left there. In my heart of hearts, I'm still holding out hope of looking like William Catt on your right. And by the way, in case anybody's wondering here, I have another little anecdote to add here. Jackie and I are at home one night. I forget what's happening. She's doing something. I don't know. She looks up. "Is this a gay thing?" Wait. Just a moment. And she says, "Nah." Some friends on the West Coast, if you follow my meeting, really thought I looked like one of the fabulous furry Freak Brothers, an underground comic whose first issue was May 1968, less known than the Art Crumb comics. A French historian who knows more about American history than I do, for sure, said I looked like General Custer. And then he added, that would be a really good scalp to take. This was an interesting one. Karl Marx.
In your dreams.
There's my bourgeois antagonist speaking up from the audience. But the thing here, and I want to come back to this, is Jackie and I are walking on the street in Paris some evening over the summer, and a complete stranger, comes up out of the blue and says, "You look like Karl Marx." That was simple something. A couple of Santa Clauses. One was from Victor of FBP Contracting, who's done some work with us around the thing. Victor's across the street, comes up and says, "Hey, you look just like Santa Claus. We should go to a department store. You can be Santa Claus and I can be your elf." I think he really was looking for inside work for the winter. A kid in the gym. Father says he thinks you're Santa Claus. Then I got this. Well, the first time I got it, I thought it was simply an exclamation. That is, Jesus! But there were a couple of people who said, "You look like Jesus." And I think they sort of missed the point that Jesus was about half my age by the time his earthly passage was done. I couldn't resist putting this one in, though. I found this in 2003 Popular Mechanics, a reconstruction of what Jesus may have actually looked like. But that's another topic. Okay. So, as is already evident, I've had plenty of encounters with people over hair. I'm not going to show slides for a bit, but I'm just going to go through a few of these examples of my encounters. I got lots of comments. "Your hair looks magnificent. Your hair is beautiful. I love your hair. It's beautiful, better than mine. Did you have a perm in it?" People are sending me songs, poems, clippings about hair, on this sort of hair black hole, as it were. These encounters with strangers, like I say, are, I think, particularly interesting and revealing. For example, last June, I'm sitting on a bench on Christopher Street in the city. There's a pretty wide sidewalk. There are, not too terribly crowded, but people walking back and forth. And there are two women, middle-aged women, that are over by the curb that are walking this way in front of me, and I'm sitting here. When they get over a little bit past me, one of the women sort of looks back over her shoulders and points and says, "Great hair!" Well, that was pretty nice. I found amusing that in March at a restaurant with a female friend with lots of curly hair, the waitress says, "I love both your hair." I began to wonder, do women comment on each other's hair to each other? I don't think men do so particularly. This is not my diary, but it ended up in my files. This is from the Metropolitan Diary of the New York Times last April, the 6th of April. "Dear Diary, overheard on the subway at 34th Street. I can't believe she didn't invite me to her 30th birthday party. I know I just met her, but I told her that I really liked her hair. Then I had strangers come up, wanting to touch my hair, wanting to feel my hair, assess its texture. Can I feel it? I got a number of times. Sometimes they just felt, sometimes they asked. To myself, I wondered what it says if we substitute the word ass for the word hair in the following exchange. Wow, you have a really nice ass. I really like it. Can I feel it? Sure, go ahead. I don't think so. Now, I think I can say a little something, I want to try to say a little something about the aesthetics of hair. The hair I have, I think, was striking, and people commented on it, but they had a hard time saying why. I conclude that you actually probably can have a discussion about the aesthetics of hair. What makes for good hair, lovely hair, bad hair days like today, and so on and so forth. But most people have simply absorbed their lessons from their surroundings of what makes hair beautiful or not, and just have trouble articulating why they think so. A couple of examples. A receptionist coming out of an office. Wow, you have great hair. Me. Thank you so much. But really, why? How? What makes it great? I don't know. It's just great. Oh, this morning I'm putting on this coat. I pull out this piece of paper. Leah, from the library, I presume. These are my contemporaneous notes. Your hair is wonderful. Me, really? Why? Leah, I don't know. It's distinguished. Well, what makes it distinguished? I don't know. A young black female cashier with dreadlocks at the A&P down on Clinton. Love your hair. Hey, thanks. Can you say why? I don't know. It's not like mine. He's got some argument there. A young contestant at the Ethics Bowl last December. Her. Love your hair. Me. Oh, yeah, really? Tell me why. Her. I don't know. It's so crazy. Really? What do you mean? Her. Oh, crazy wild. Oh, but crazy in a good way. All right, so it's crazy in a bad way, crazy in a good way. A couple of male students of mine, back in January, 2 of them, in the hallway. Your hair's amazing. Me, really? Why? What makes it amazing? Student 1. I don't know. It's long, it's free. Student 2. Yeah, free, liberated. Student 1. Yeah, liberation. And they go off. I won't read the next one. Other male students, younger male students who are into hockey, like the flow coming out of the back of the hockey helmet. Apparently, that's something we did like. My favorite encounter of this sort occurred at the A&P in Newport over here back in May. Jackie and I are shopping together. We have a big cart full of groceries and supplies and all that sort of stuff. And I'm pushing the cart, turn the corner around to the self-checkout sort of things. Full of aisle and 4 or 5 of these things. Nobody's here. One attendant there, a youngish black woman again, in her 20s perhaps. Just as I turn the cart, we spot one another. And she exclaims, "The hair!" I say, "Really? Tell me about the hair." She says, "It's so white. There's so much of it. There's no gray in it." She's seeing me from the front. Then there's a pregnant pause. I'm looking at her. She's looking at me. I'm this older white guy. She's this younger black woman. It just kind of sort itself out. Then with a gleam in her eye, she looks at me dead on, quite deliberately says, "Yeah, you're old." It was a really great moment and expressed a truth that I hadn't anticipated. Annette from Makeover's beauty store, we'll see more about Annette in a minute, a professional hairstylist. She was very interested in my hair and says I have great hair. But she said that the ends needed clipping, needed trimming after a year. Well, why do your ends need clipping after a year? I don't know. She said I needed a haircut. Well, why do I need a haircut? And she's not alone in saying I need a haircut. Jackie's been saying this from day one. Diane yesterday told me I needed a haircut, and a number of other people have as well. My college-age niece, Alex, was dead set against this project. Don't comb it back, she said. Couldn't tell me why, just don't comb it back. To a thank you note after a visit last Thanksgiving, she added, "Please cut your hair." To Alex, I'm indebted regarding a man bob, which I didn't know about. She informed me about a man bob, and maybe I'll wear a man bob when this is all over. Last fall, though, in this connection, because Alex is younger, that's the point. In conversation with some graduate students, the subject came up. One of the guys in this group who we were dealing with was letting his hair grow, and he made the point, well, we all discussed this, and that is that female choice plays a big role in hairstyles. There really is a socio-biological and evolutionary psychological dimension to hair and how we shape it and how we grow it. The point being, as I understand, and again, I know nothing about any of this, that in today's world, women over 30, I'm told, like longer hair, and younger women like shorter hair in their men. One way or another, again, this notion of female choice is, I think, an important insight into the dynamics of hair. All of which brings me to this notion of one's look. Again, Goffman is making this point. Stevens professor at the School of Systems and Engineering, Bill Rouse, back in March said, as I'm walking into a room for a meeting, he says, I thought Einstein was walking in the room. Was that the look you were going for? No, I never really thought about this. This notion of a look. We style ourselves. Self-fashioning ends up to be one of the conclusions I want to come to. I just hadn't thought about it. I was greeting a student in the hallway the other day. Me, hey, how are you? You've changed your look. Her, you've changed your look too. I had another interesting encounter. This was at Sylvia Gray's house. Cynthia Gray, excuse me, is the partner of the late Steve Bloom at Stevens. She was having a musicale over in her largish apartment, a woodwind trio, a number of people there, plenty of seats and so on and so forth. I come in, Cynthia's over to the side, you know, I sit down. She doesn't recognize me. She asks another guest, who is this person in her living room? Later she comes up and said she didn't recognize me. And coming out of my mouth, I found myself saying, I've changed my look. What I should have said, of course, was rather, my look has changed. If we can use the passive tense in an appropriate kind of way. This past summer, my local marchand de journaux, the lady at the newspaper stand, says to me, "Ah, monsieur, vous avez changé du look." There is such a thing as a look. Now, en passant, and this is really en passant at this point, I want to mention how I know a little French, but this experience, by experiment here, has inevitably taught me a whole new vocabulary of French words that I didn't know. I mean, I knew cheveux, plural word for hair. I knew poil, not such a good, not easily translated into scalp, and you know, I can, you know, dégouiller one way or another. But I learned all these new ones, including frissotti. I love frissotti. Frizzies! Everybody's got, well, you women know at least. You men, I don't know what you know. Frissotti. You know, frizzies. Coup de cheval. Horsetail. It's not ponytail in French, it's horsetail. But what I also learned is another word. Le catogan, which is a word for ponytail worn by men. It's got a Renaissance sort of masculine demeanor to it. And here's some other words that my friend François Rigour sent to me. Bouclette, bigourdi, mèche-fort, arrache-coeur. Teeth is an interesting one, colloquial for hair, and you go to the coupe-teef or the coiffeur to get your hair cut. All this stuff I didn't know before. I want to say just a little something about gender ambiguity here. And cognitive dissonance provoked by my current look and how I've come to look this way. In essence, we could debate it, but in essence, I sport the hair of a woman along with this hairy, very male beard. A friend, on seeing a picture of me, remarked that it took him a second to figure out the gender of who he was looking at because of the hair and the beard together. It didn't compute for an extra second. Never a fan of this project, my Stevens colleague in mechanical engineering, Saran Manucheri, at one point likewise remarked to me that there was just too much hair overall. The hair, the head, or the beard, but not both. Well, where does the hair on your face leave off and the hair on our heads begin? Well, I discover is a physical space that is socially negotiated to a high degree. Think about sideburns. We're talking about this little area of your head. In this case, just letting my hair grow, I found this space up here besides my ears, and that if I didn't cut that hair, decide that it didn't belong on this boundary, I would then have peyote or a traditional sidelocks. And I would take on the look of an Orthodox Jew. I think I would have made a great-looking rabbi, by the way. And I really did give it some thought, just to, you know, freak people out. But in the end, I snipped off the sidewalks and extended the territory of my facial hair up to my ears. Let me just say a short word about gestures. It turns out, I think everybody knows this, and I think women in particular know this. It turns out that there's a physiological effect of having longer hair. I am physiologically a different person because I have had to develop a whole other set of gestures in order to just deal with this stuff on the top of my head. Now, I'm not going to illustrate this because, of course, I don't want to muss up my hair, which is another consideration that we might add here. But I think, you know, the way you do it in the shower, and so on and so forth. Sensitivity to wind, for example, is something that I've certainly noticed that I never knew about before. Along the way here, I've had many pleasant encounters with men usually who are balding, have receding hair, and so on and so forth, and I got this very positive reaction. Like Richie from the Alec Mechanical says, you know, he's envious, he says. Sal Prisco, a professor of history at Stevens, now retired, who also doesn't have a whole lot of hair, pointed out to me years ago that the hair serves as an early warning system, so that if you don't have a lot of hair, you're likely to bump your head more often than you do if you have some hair. That I found to be true. And as the weather's changing, I'm noticing that there's an insulating effect too, which I rather like. Of course, the whole issue of hats is something I'm not going to talk about. Ron Besser, my colleague, our colleague in chemical engineering, material science here, and not the most hirsute individual we've ever met, said that he liked the maid. So, you know, no hostility. Then I discovered the world of hair products. I started out innocently enough, but if anybody does know a 12-step program out there for people like me, please talk to me afterwards. I really need it. My name is Jim. I really need help. This is what I used for 46, 47 years or something like it. Jackie would cut my hair, I go in the shower, get dressed, move on. Never thought a word second about it. Well, after a while it became clear that that was not going to do, so I shifted to Jackie's shampoo and conditioner. Redken, shampoing. And again, it's interesting how the French is all this, and après shampoing. You know, I needed the conditioner. Then I discovered frizzies. It happened at a faculty meeting here about this time last year over at the Shard building. A colleague says, "Oh, you look very windblown." And another friend later said, "Your hair's very wild today." Well, I'm still not sure what wild means and why we insist on that, but I didn't have the answers. And here's where my friend Diane Zeitman comes into the story, leading me down the garden path of hair products. Because I mentioned to Diane this business about frizzies and what happened at the faculty meeting, and she said, "Well, hey, you know, why don't you try this? I don't particularly like it. It's anti-frizzy stuff." She didn't like the smell too much, but she said, "You know, give it a try. Maybe it'll work for you." Oh, okay, and I'm spritzing this up. It works really, really good. I didn't like the smell too much either, so I made a trek to Makeover's beauty store here in Hoboken, and I discovered this unbelievable world that I had no notion about at all. Here are Annette and Fran. Annette's the professional hairstylist. Fran is her sister. Fran sold me my first brushes. I was actually in there first for brushes because I needed some brushes, and so Fran sold me, well, first these, and then the wet brush came later. That was when I was more deeply a hair product addict. And was at that time. So there, if we go back, by the way, to this picture, you can see in the back that green stuff over there. That's the Diva Curl product line, and I'm a Diva Curl girl. And the first thing I did to replace the anti-frizzy that Diane gave me is this Diva Curl Set It Free. It's like really good. I really recommend all of these products. You got frizzies, this will take care of it. But then again, the stuff keeps growing, and the frizzy stuff wasn't quite enough. So another friend suggested, said, "Look, you need gel." So back to Makeovers, and I get a light defining gel and the styling cream. And that sold me the styling cream too, so you might combine them. The styling cream has its uses, I will say, but I'm really more so on the gel. And then later I discovered this no-comb detangling spray. This is absolutely wonderful. It works really, really great, and it just smells wonderful. Just go buy, just smell it. No-comb detangling spray. So this is the full gamut of products. Well, actually not quite, because this is the full gamut. Hairspray over here at the end gets a bad rap. I mean, hairspray is a good thing. We need to encourage the more widespread use of hairspray. It's not the 1950s anymore. Hairspray is okay. All right. I have to have complimentary stuff in the gym. I have to have stuff in my office. Traveling is now different. I have to pack this stuff. I got to have shampoo and conditioner and I don't know what, you know. And I know women, and probably there's some women in here, who when traveling pack a lot of toiletries. I heard an ad on the radio made mention of every woman's product graveyard. Now, I never had a product graveyard, but I also didn't get into dryers or rollers or irons at all. I mean, that's a whole other subject. Although recently in the gym, I think a little bit of drying gives you a little more oomph, maybe. I didn't have a product graveyard, but all of this stuff costs money, and it takes time that could be spent on better things. A few miscellaneous observations, and then we'll conclude. Oh, again, with Jackie. I had to get my passport renewed, so I had to go get my picture taken. Jackie is freaked out as to this. Your picture is going to be on that passport for the next 10 years, looking like that. Well, I don't think it turned out all that bad, per se. And then similarly, when it became a question, because I like to swim in the pool, of getting a hair cap for this, she's also freaking out, thinking of a babushka from Brighton Beach. It turns out they're very nice hair things for swimming. Child in a restaurant starts crying. Mother says, "It's your hair." Airport men's room. I was in all alone. Cleaning lady calls in. "Is anyone there?" Me. Just me, but come on in. And then I find myself saying, I'm astonished, "I'm just fixing my hair." You know, I need help. The purser on the flight back from Paris this summer. Now, with Jackie's haircut, I should go back to that slide so maybe you remember. Everybody thought I was a professor. I'd go through customs. "Oh, you're a professor." 3 times in one day. "You're a professor." "Yeah, I'm a professor, 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 professor." I was like a professor from Central Casting. Which, by the way, raises questions for me about how women professors, female professors, feel and act and seem to receive. But that's another subject as well. The purser comes up, however, and asks, kind of discreetly, "Are you a rock star?" I guess I'm happy to morph from a professor to a rock star. Wendy Wang, a mathematician friend who teaches at Stevens, says, "You look more and more like heavy metal every day." And my French newspaper lady said, "C'est très rock and roll." It's very rock and roll, your look. Oh, Robert Jenney on the street next to Dunkin' Donuts. Robert Jenney is a very interesting, talented designer and builder, really an artist. He rebuilt or helped us rebuild our house after Hurricane Sandy. Really delightful guy, I love him a lot. We crossed paths on the street. He says, "What's going on with the hair?" So I tell him, I say, "Yeah, you know, Robert, let it grow, taking notes, and blah, blah, blah." And he says, "I bet you get interesting looks from women." And I hadn't thought about it. But it's true. Women have been smiling at me. And I've been smiling back. Now, I've gotten some odd looks, too. Looks from a distance, people, who's that guy? And people just looking. Asian businessmen in a restaurant recently could hardly restrain themselves from staring. Once I picked up some homophobia from a threesome of adolescent males. Some construction workers were talking about me in Spanish, and I thought it was complimentary, so I thought we were good about that. Some truckers hawked once, and I hadn't quite figured what that's like. Oh, let me conclude. I have three conclusions that I like to offer at the end of this experiment. One is that hair is a big deal, and that hair affects women, affects everybody but women in particular. This is Irving Goffman again. It conveys messages of all sorts. Hair is a signifier, and I'm an interesting case, I think, to bring out some of these things. But for women, it's worse, because I've only been dealing with hair for the last 22 months. Imagine what it would be like if you had makeup to consider as belong to this. Jewelry, outfits, accessories, shoes, nylons, whatever. You integrate over all of that, and I think all of these social constraints are very oppressive to women. And if I were a woman, I would not be involved in any of them. I call this a sociological and psychological experiment, and I can report on the subjective impact of it as well, psychologically. The answer here has to do with self-image and a deeper appreciation of how our own mental images of ourselves and our notions of ourselves are bonds that restrain us, actually. We limit our own freedom in our self-fashioning. We end up being prisoners of Blake's mind-forged manacles. Maybe we can put a more positive spin on this. That is, perhaps we should be more free in who we allow ourselves to be less constrained by our own mental images of ourselves, in our construction of identity to entertain larger possibilities, to allow ourselves a greater degree of freedom in our thinking. I certainly feel this as a result of this experiment. Without it, I would still be the guy who looked like he did and thought of himself as he did before this crazy thing started. Finally, there's some temporal conclusions, and that is what's going to happen next. I'm declaring the experiment over. This is it for me, but I'm not sure what happens next. There's been plenty of discussion of that too. In class, even today, students were saying, let it grow forever. I told Jackie this, she was not very happy to hear that. Whatever it is, though, I tell you, it's going to happen slowly, and I have a reason for that, because once upon a time, I won't show you the picture because it would be too distracting to show you the picture. Just take my word for it. Once upon a time, I was in my 20s, I was in graduate school, I had a beard, I had tinted glasses, and I had pretty wild hair. And in the same day, I shaved the beard, got new glasses, and cut the hair. Don't ever do anything like that, ever in your life. Nobody knew who I was. It was completely dramatic. So whatever happens from here will happen slowly. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed it.
We have 10 minutes for questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Jim. It was eye-opening for me about what you could actually talk about. But one thing I was wondering about was you brought up gender, and one thing that seems curious to me is that for men, long hair sort of indicates intelligence. So you think Einstein, you think Marx, you think Darwin. But I think for women, it's the opposite. And my wife has long curly hair, and she's often been told for a job interview to pull it back and don't show it. I'm wondering why there's this asymmetry. I was wondering if you had any thoughts.
I can't say that I do really. I think it's just part of the ways in which gender divisions take place socially, and it's not a good thing. Alan.
I have been a Professor McClellan groupie since I found out that we both lived in a graduate college at Princeton. And when I saw the ad for this seminar, I said, how boring a topic could that be? Why would anyone want to talk about hair? But I was very happy to hear how it played out.
Oh, good. Thank you very much. I was worried about it being boring, that's for sure. You done?
Should I?
Oh, no, keep it going. Yeah.
I'm curious on your thoughts as to how you said that our self-image constrains us, and
Yes.
I'm curious as to how you thought about subculture in that context and whether or not that's toxic, because you have people kind of limiting themselves to singular movements and looks and styles and kind of
Absolutely.
Decided.
Well, on the other hand, notion of identity is very much wrapped up in hair and the presentation of self as well. And so group identity makes a big difference. So I mean, it's going to cut both ways, because on the one hand, I think you want to belong somehow, but don't necessarily want to feel like a complete outsider, although you might. The only point there again was, we don't think about our own self-images in this way, or that we could think about ourselves in a different way, an expanded kind of way. And that's what I'm sensing the possibility here, and would be encouraging everyone to do. Reiner.
One question and one suggestion. One question, what you all pointed out, what I was a little bit interested, did anybody connected the length of your hair or the style of your hair to the healthiness? So how healthy you are in that one, because you have sometimes in the other direction, no hair means in a certain way can indicate a sickness, specific sicknesses. And the second question, one suggestion, do you ever thought about making a social website where the people can vote if you let it grow or you let it
Maybe we should. Another friend, my friend Riley suggested that I ought to volunteer to, donate money to Stevens, who have a raffle or something. Who's going to pay the most money to cut my hair, or to get my hair cut?
or you can make it
$200.
you can make it a
The opening bid is $10,000.
You can bet how much weight you have on your head.
Well, I'm pretty lightweight guy, so I don't have to worry about.
But I would really like to know if anybody commented that one in the connections of being healthy.
Exactly. I don't know the answer there. You would think that fitness could be measured by hair. I mean, it's the peacock phenomenon. I don't know. Maybe if you have, I mean, I think as you get older, it matters less. But maybe younger, if you've got a healthy head of hair, means that you're, healthy. You can reproduce successfully, and so on and so forth. Yeah, Nate the dog, by the way.
Hello everyone. Anyways, my question was going to be more related to the care of the hair and how that would happen.
To hair care, okay?
Like, for instance, I don't know how much time per day you spend with your hair.
Too much. How much time do I spend? The answer is too much.
Okay, but I think wouldn't that have an enormous impact on how people perceive you as well? Because let's say you have one person who takes good care of the hair versus someone who's a mess. Would that have more of an effect than rather than length?
Possibly, but again, I don't quite understand what's a mess and what's not a mess. What makes something a mess and what makes something like appealing and attractive. But I will say, what I'd really like to would be to have other people do this for me. Like a hairstylist and do all of that sort of stuff. I mean, maybe I'll just go to the beauty salon for makeovers and just lie back and let it happen. Professor Steinlein.
Yeah, what you might add to your research here would be maybe a historical perspective. So you could ask yourself, would you have done the same thing 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 30 years ago? I think of someone like David Beckham, who changed the way how men look and came up with this type of metrosexuality, which has vanished now.
That's a very good point.
So how does that play into?
Again, I don't know the answer to that, but you certainly raise a good point. That this is a dynamic thing in the culture. I've just sort of plugged myself into it in this weird way and seen these things. I have no real expertise or authority to speak more largely about it, but I grant you that would be to contextualize this historically and culturally. I think would be very interesting and revealing.
So, this growing out your hair is an act of defiance, not only toward Jackie, but toward the whole school, and you're getting all these comments. I just wonder if, so you're feeling, I'm wondering if you feel more like a rebel and a nonconformist, and if you're actually changing your behavior or your thinking to match the hair.
I wouldn't say so. I mean, in that regard, I've always felt pretty much the same way. I mean, I've just hidden it better, perhaps, in one way or another. But again, I do come back to this subjective psychological thing. Who I think I am, my image of myself, has changed slightly, in I think positive ways. But not because I'm like, hey, I'm out of the closet as a rebel. I think people who've known me here for years, well understand that who I am and kind of what's going on. Yes, ma'am?
So does it make you feel more youthful, though?
No, I wouldn't say so, 'cause I ain't young. I think like those two stone guys. Like, I feel free, man.
How about daily activities like cooking? Has it changed your lifestyle, like how you cook or how you hike?
Absolutely. It's in this category of gestures again. How you wash your hair. I mean, you got to, get out of here. I found, by the way, it ends up in your mouth. Which I never knew. Yeah, and I'm finding more hair in my food too.
Get a hairnet.
Thank you very much. It's just more equipment. Anyway, one more question. Let's see. You've already asked a question. Let's see. Professor Prasad.
Did it influence in terms of your philosophical perspective in the sense that now you kind of don't care about your looks in the sense of letting the hair grow and say,
Well, I don't know. I'm stuck with caring more about my looks, I'm afraid.
well, caring, but in terms of others' reaction on you. I mean, I don't care what people say anymore.
Well, I don't know the answer to that. I really do have a quandary now because I've made a big deal out of this stuff, and now I'm walking around here. I know Jackie just can't wait. She's got the scissors in the next room. So what I want to do is stand out less. Let's put it that way than I have been in this period of time, and sort of retreat more just to be an ordinary guy.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
Thank you all very much.
Lee Bensel is not going to talk about his hair.
No.
Although maybe we should ask Jackie to give a presentation, so we have the
A balanced streak.
balance. More than balance. Okay.